Attention, duped masses!
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato.
Cancer clusters, pink slime settlement, and pets in pain. Plus this day in history with Franz Ferdinand and our song of the day by Little Dragon on your Morning Monarchy for June 28th, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Welcome back to another listener-supported blast of independent, non-commercial alternative media brought to you by you. Coming to you, as always, from the Peak Portland studios up here in Portland, Oregon. Glad you're here. A couple seconds after 9 a.m. Streaming live at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. Share that link. And you can get the link over to the chat in the tweets and all the stories that we are going to talk about for the next jam-packed hour. They have all been tweeted out. We are brought to you by you. MediaMonarchy.com/support has the PayPal, the Patreon, the Bitcoin, and even the post office box. Any number of ways you can help support our work. We've been doing it for nearly 12 years. And if you can give a little, I can give a lot. Huge thanks to the Truth Seeker app and RadioConfluence.com as well, my friends. Wednesday means food, health, and environment news. We call it hashtag Food World Order. All the stories and so many, many, many more stories you can find using hashtag Food World Order. Not only are we crowdfunded, but we are crowdsourced by you as well. Huge thanks to everybody who joins us over in the Discord chat. We can learn a lot, not only about the world, but about each other and about ourselves. Now, I did just see our buddy Chef Jake told us that more Veritas videos are going to be dropping. That's, of course, James O'Keefe and his hidden camera action, busting the fake news, worth several lulls. My favorite part about yesterday's videos, of course, where CNN editors say, oh, the Russia narrative is mostly bullshit for ratings. My favorite part was the medical guy that they had, whose name I don't recall, sucking soda out of a styrofoam cup from Chick-fil-A. That's about like, nurses that smoke cigarettes. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to trust you all that much, buddy. Let's glance at the breaking lamestream news before we dive into our Food World Order delicious, nutritious menu. Oh, this is a pretty Food World Order-y headline. Blue Apron slices share price, hinting at tough market. Blue Apron breaks infatuation with growth at any price. Helicopter attack targets Venezuela's Supreme Court. And a man linked to Oklahoma monument's destruction. Arrest made after 10 Commandments monument at Arkansas Capitol toppled, shattered. Of course, that is all a part of the renaissance of left-wing terror. Now, again, that's not real left-wing terror. It's all fake left-wing terror. Speaking of fake left, let's begin right here in Peak Portland, Oregon, my friends, with a city that is changing very rapidly. I know I used the F word a lot yesterday. Fat. But there's a new service for those who get a craving for cheeseburger and fries but don't want to deal with the drive-thru. You know, when you got to put on your sweatpants. McDonald's recently partnered up with Uber Eats to give Peak Portland a new take on fast food delivery. They call it McDelivery. 24-hour delivery service officially rolled out in the Rose City on Monday. People using the Uber Eats app can simply place an order from the McDonald's menu and it'll be delivered right to your door. Right to your door of an overpriced apartment because the city's been overrun by tech transplants. But, I'm not bitter at all. It's not going so well with our neighbors to the north, and of course they're pushing for 15 down here in Portland, Oregon. But new study shows, shocker, shocker, shock of shocks, Seattle's $15 minimum wage actually might not be helping them.
In Seattle, many businesses must pay a minimum wage of at least $13 an hour. Now, a new study from the University of Washington says the knock-on effect of that law has left low-wage workers with less money in their pockets because some employers cut working hours. According to Reuters, the research paper said low-wage workers now clock 9% fewer hours on average and earn $125 less each month than before the city set one of the highest minimum wages in the nation. The federal minimum wage has stayed at $7.25 an hour since 2009. The Republican-controlled U.S. Congress has opposed an increase.
So pretty much that thing everybody said was going to happen. Hey, oh my God, it's happening. Shocker. All those crappy jobs are just going to cut those crappy hours. So not a surprise at all. And yeah, you can probably tell that my system might be crippling under the weight of the massive amount of news we're trying to cover this morning. Meanwhile, McDonald's is replacing 2,500 human cashiers with digital kiosks. Zero Hedge breaks down all the math. And that's how it goes. We knew exactly that was going to happen. Now, I've also got further coverage on the big, huge murders and executions. I mean, mergers and acquisitions Grocers facing a united Amazon Whole Foods must adapt. This coming from the Morning Call, mcall.com. And they basically say, adapt or die, suckers. Grocery stores trying to compete with the threat of a combined Amazon and Whole Foods will have to make their stores more appealing, leverage their locations to offer delivery, and do a better job of collecting shopper data. They also may need to seek out innovative partners of their own. So they're basically saying, if you want to beat them, you are going to have to join them. So you have to turn it into a lifestyle. They're going to start serving beer and alcohol at certain grocery stores. They want you to stay. It's all about the lifestyle. So that's quite a blast already of headlines and news in the first few minutes of this Food World Order edition of your Morning Monarchy. Again, we are streaming live at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. Hope you spread that link around. We stream live Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Pacific time. So you can get, and we've already made these jokes, you can get cancerous foods delivered to you, and then when you go into cardiac arrest, they'll just send out the drone, the defibrillator drones that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Now, while fatty parents are getting the defibrillator drones sent to them, their poor kids, while they're getting their 15,000 hours of compulsory education, quote-unquote education. And we've got a couple of stories out of California today. As California goes, so goes the world, they say. At least 2 students have gotten cancer at a school. Now parents want the cell towers removed from the school. Group demands a California school district take down cell phone towers on campuses. Now, I've got a compilation of clips here. The audio isn't great, but they did great work in putting 4 different reports together.
In a colorful protest, about 24 Weston Elementary School kids in Ripon skipped class on Wednesday, demanding the Ripon Unified School District remove what they believe is a cancer-causing agent. What do you want the school to do?
Take down that cell tower.
Having a cell phone tower on a school ground, in 2011 it was classified as a known carcinogen, so that tells me that it shouldn't be around our children.
Kelly Prime's 11-year-old son, Kyle, was diagnosed with cancer last year.
I had a worms tumor in my left kidney.
And Monica Ferruli's 10-year-old son, Mason, was diagnosed 6 months later.
I had brain cancer.
It's devastating. You know, it's a battle that no parent wants to watch their child go through.
Oh, it was complete devastation.
Both mothers believe the radiation from the communications tower, which was installed in 2009 on the school's campus, may be the reason their sons got sick.
It's there. It's very, very close to the buildings. The kids are there, 6-7 hours a day.
The American Cancer Society says there is very little evidence that these towers cause cancer. Even so, Ferruli says she has demanded answers from the school district, only to remain in the dark.
They don't know when it's tested, what the last radiation levels ever tested, how often it's tested.
We called, even showed up to the superintendent's office, but administrators told us she wasn't available. No one would comment. Now both boys are cancer-free, but their parents, who are fighting to keep it that way, say they might have to transfer their kids to a different school for their health.
At this point, we just have to eliminate any possible factors that could cause it to come back.
Their world changed.
Emotions running high at the Ripon Unified School District Board meeting.
He was removed from school. He was removed from all of his friends. He missed out on the entire year of school.
Families raising concerns about a cell phone tower at Weston Elementary School where 2 students have been diagnosed with cancer.
Convince the school district to take it down.
Mason Ferruli is in 6th grade and has attended Weston since kindergarten. He spent the first half of the year battling a rare brain tumor, undergoing a 14-hour surgery to remove it.
It was pretty rough.
Doctors can't say what caused his brain cancer. According to the American Cancer Society, research is inconclusive on whether cell phones and cell towers are linked to cancer.
There's not enough research to say it is or it's not, so why have our children be the experiment that discovers that it is later on?
Joe and Kelly Prime's son Kyle also developed cancer while going to school there.
And it's not proven either way, and we don't understand why you would gamble with children's health.
Now thousands of parents and community members have signed a petition to remove the tower.
We started a petition approximately a month ago, and we received over 3,300 signatures.
Parents parents say the money the school district gets from having the tower on campus isn't worth any potential risk, even if the health impacts of wireless radiation is still uncertain.
We just want them to be open-minded and hear what we're saying.
School board members originally told us they would not be commenting tonight, but they just released a statement saying they appreciate the family's comments and they have already started and will continue to look into the issue. Reporting from Ripon, Natalie Brunel, KCRA 3 News.
Perfect, normal, as usual.
10-year-old Kyle Pay, but in August of last year, he was diagnosed with a massive problem.
But there's just a lump in my stomach.
Not just any lump. Kyle's dad, Joe Prime, showed us this picture of a tumor after it was removed from his son's stomach near his kidney. But Kyle wasn't alone.
Crazy, because everybody lately is getting cancer anymore at my school.
In January, with a tumor in his brain. Parents of both kids do not believe this is a coincidence.
It's really frustrating.
Both boys attend Weston Elementary in Ripon, a school that also has this cell phone tower on its campus and has for the last 8 years. Kyle and Mason's parents say they don't know for sure if the tower is to blame, but at tonight's Ripon Unified School District meeting, they pleaded to have it taken down.
Heather that have been diagnosed with cancer. This tower needs to be removed.
Also at tonight's meeting was Ellen Marks. She's the director of the California Brain Tumor Association. Marks, too, cannot say the tower is what caused the kid's cancer for sure. She adds, though, that recent research suggests it may have.
Some are diagnosed now, some might not be diagnosed for 10 or 20 years. We can't take that chance.
Well, you're going to take that chance with your kids. Those were 4 different segments from KCRA. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Looking at food, health, and environment news. And again, everything we say and play will always be included in the show notes. You can get all these articles, all these videos, and continue the research for yourself. I know this is just going to give more fuel to the fire of those anti-cell phone crazies, right? So while you're sitting on your ass, getting foundation-funded so-called education, you're also sitting and sitting and sitting. And now we've talked about weak little pansy hands, but there's more than that. The adolescent years are when people's bodies are supposed to start the ascent to their physical peak. Teenagers growing like beanstalks, hormones raging, eager for new experiences. By all accounts, this should be among the most active period in a person's lifetime, except it's not anymore. In an eye-opening study involving 12,529 Americans aged 6 to 85, researchers mapped how physical activity changes over a lifetime. The participants, part of the 2003 to 4, 2005 to 6 cycles of the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey in Haines, wore accelerometers, devices that measure movement, for 7 consecutive days. For the purposes of the analysis, researchers counted all types of movement, not just exercise. The first thing to note about the results, published in the August issue of the Journal of Preventive Medicine, is that physical activity appears to be at its highest at age 6. If you've ever seen a squirmy kindergarten class, that's not a surprise. Vijay Varma, a National Institute of Aging researcher and lead author of the study, said that there had been a belief that physical activity gradually declines across the entire lifespan. But according to this new data, there seems to be a sharper than expected decline during childhood, starting in elementary school and continuing through middle school and high school. By age 19, the average American is as sedentary as a 60-year-old. At 60 plus, many people have health issues that might cause a restriction in movement, but why is this happening at age 19? It suggests that the social structures in place may not be supporting physical activity. I'm so glad, one, I'm not in school, and that right now I'm not dealing with trying to put a child into a school. They've gotten rid of all the recesses, gotten rid of any of the little icky things that might cause problems. So I think in a lot of ways I see the pansy hands, the pansy smartphone hands with the very low tensile strength that we've talked about in past episodes. That's just kind of an analogy for all of this. Weakened. Very weakened. So watch out for smartphone zombies stumbling, bumbling around your streets. They're all right outside. They're right outside your door. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy. A Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple because of his religious beliefs will fight discrimination claims before the Supreme Court next term. Now, of course, as we noted, Supreme Court wrapped it up Monday. They're on summer vacay. When the Masterpiece Cake Shop in Lakewood, Colorado refused to make a wedding cake for Charlie Craig and David Mullins in 2012, owner Jack Phillips said it would violate his Christian beliefs. Phillips believes that decorating cakes is an art through which he honors God, and thus it would upset God to create cakes in celebration of marriages between same-sex couples. Craig and Mullins filed a complaint with the Office of Administrative Courts, which found in favor of the couple. Colorado Civil Rights Commission also found that Phillips violated state anti-discrimination laws and ordered him to change your policy against making wedding cakes for same-sex couples or be subject to fines. So this goes back and forth between all the lower courts. This maker has the right to hold negative opinions about gays and lesbians. He has the right to believe they are damned to hell, said Robin Blumner, president and CEO of the center, in a statement. What he does not have the right to refuse them service at his business. Now, we talked about this a bit yesterday. The same case played out here in Oregon. Bakers, gay weddings, pretty much the exact same thing. And I'll say now again what I said then. If you want your business to just play nothing but bagpipes and cigarettes, cigarette smoking bagpipes, that's the name of your store. That's the name of your place. If that's what you want to do in your business, I think that's, what's it called? Your business. Isn't that probably where that saying comes from? Mind your own business. And why would you want, that's a great question in the chat. Several great questions in the chat. Well, he's the only baker in town, I guess? Maybe it's a small town, I'm not sure. And why would you want to repeatedly go to someone who obviously doesn't like you and hates you? That's what a fucking free market is supposed to be about. Hey, that guy's an asshole. I don't want to go there. Yeah, me either. That's how that works. That's how that's supposed to work. Why do you hate me? And also, do you take a check? We're either free or we're not. There's a lot of little in-between little wiggle room where wiggly worms like to wiggle. Holy moly. Now, we've been following the pink slime trial as it began 4 weeks ago, and I was all set to do pink slime trial. Let's look at week 4. And we still have that story for you from Food Safety News. Disparagement trial, week 4. ABC News stands its ground. Network's lawyers ask Beef Products Incorporated witness about 60% sales drop preceding the ABC reports. But just in this morning, about 2 hours ago, not even 2 hours ago, 1 hour ago from the Associated Press, breaking. ABC News says it has settled a lawsuit filed by a South Dakota meat producer over their pink slime reports.
According to a statement, ABC News has settled its pink slime defamation case. A $1.9 billion lawsuit had been filed against ABC News by South Dakota meat processor Beef Products Incorporated over a series of 2012 reports by Jim Avila. In its statement, ABC News wrote, ABC has reached an amicable resolution of its dispute with the makers of lean, finely textured beef. Although we have concluded that continued litigation of this case is not in the company's interests, we remain committed to the vigorous pursuit of truth and the consumer's right to know about the products they purchase.
It is pretty much lips and assholes ground up and mixed with ammonia, basically. Ava's got it right in the chat. And it's, that's to say it's not beef. That's the problem. They were trying to say it's not beef. No, the yoga mats, I think, are in your Subway subs. Or at least they used to be. Until independent people started to talk about it. And that's how a lot of this works. Making a big-ass stink about things that matter. So I actually kind of thought the case wouldn't even make it to trial. I kind of expected settlement to happen even before this thing took off. 4 weeks in, ABC must be thinking things ain't going their way. So they decided to do a settlement. And then what does that mean with a settlement? Nothing. It means everybody basically agrees to disagree. And everybody can go on working for their bastion of truthiness at Disney, ABC, while they crank out all their Star Wars and Marvel movies. Then BPI can continue to spray a bunch of lips and assholes all ground up with ammonia. I'll have neither of those, please. Thank you very much. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com, here all week. Glyphosate, an herbicide and the active ingredient in Monsanto's popular Roundup weed killer will be added to California's list of chemicals known to cause cancer, effective coming up July 7th. Monsanto vowed to continue its legal fight against the designation required under a state law known as Proposition 65, and called the decision unwarranted on the basis of science and the
California
law.
on Monday has become the first state to require popular weed killer Roundup to come with a label warning that it's known to cause cancer. Starting July 7th, the main ingredient in Roundup, glyphosate, will appear on a list of potentially cancerous chemicals. The chemicals produced by Monsanto, which has filed an appeal after losing in court to prevent the labeling, arguing that the label will harm the company's business.
Yeah, it'll harm the companies, but you guys are disparaging our cancer-causing product. Wonder if that'll go to court. Now, I knew Lips and Assholes was from a movie, and I knew it was lodged in my big old brain pan somewhere, but it wasn't coming to me. Again, thanks to Ava. Oh, that's right, it's from Great Outdoors. I believe the raccoons who talk and have captions in the movie as they're digging through and rooting through all the trash cans, they say, "Ugh, don't eat hot dogs, it's all lips and assholes." Now, as long as we're nerding out on movies, I distinctly recall seeing, this is when I was seeing every single movie in the movie theater. It was that like 1987 to 1992 run, I saw it all. When the bear gets shot and it blows all the hair off of his ass, that's probably the biggest laugh I think I've ever heard in a movie theater. And I still kind of remember it to this day. That's why we kind of like to have those shared experiences. It's a shame the way they kind of go sometimes. So we are blasting through all your Food World Order headlines. And again, you can find all these stories on the top of the tweets using hashtag Food World Order. And there is a lot of food, health, and environment news to talk about. And of course, there's always some crazy new drug to worry about as well. So we'll start in Houston, and then we'll hop on over to New Hampshire with two stories about the same drug, a new highly dangerous opioid, carfentanil. I already don't like cars, so when you add that into a drug name, it already sounds pretty bad. Carfentanil. Highly potent opioid related to the legal pharmaceutical fentanyl was confirmed in Houston this month, prompting immediate protective action for forensic laboratories, police, and other first responders. Now get this, a presumed batch of meth tested positive for carfentanil on June 7th by the Houston Forensic Science Center. This stuff is really frightening. Its only legitimate use is as an elephant tranquilizer. The estimates are that a lethal dose of this is about 20 micrograms. That'd be 20 millionths of a gram. So a lethal dose is something so small, you're likely not going to see it. And the crazy thing about this drug, even if you... It's basically, you should stop short of even looking at it. If you look at carfentanil, it might kill you.
The drugs were found when officers entered this apartment building right next to the police department. They were looking for someone who was wanted on an arrest warrant.
She admitted that it was an illegal substance. It was seized and sent to the forensic lab in Concord, where the analysis came back that it was in fact carfentanil.
The Attorney General's office is now investigating to find out who sold the drugs.
Franklin, having the issues that we do with drugs, we knew that it would be here sooner or later.
The drug is so powerful, just touching it can cause an overdose. It also can be resistant to Narcan.
The paramedics will tell you now it's taking half a dozen doses of Narcan to bring people back from an overdose.
First responders are now wearing gloves and masks to protect themselves against the deadly drug. Detectives at the Franklin Police Department are now following new protocol.
We used to field test it with little packets that we have that shows if it's positive or anything for that drug. Now we don't do any of that. We send it just straight to the lab.
The chief says the city is working together to address the crisis. This center just opened up in December called Hope for Recovery to help those suffering from addiction.
We need the whole community to band together to do this. You know, the prevention, the treatment, the recovery.
They tell us they are helping people dealing with all sorts of addictions, including heroin, fentanyl, and meth.
We all have different perspectives, different resources, and everyone can help in this.
The chief tells us now that they've seen carfentanyl, they expect to see it more, but they do say they are prepared to deal with it and any other drug that comes their way.
So the text I had originally at the top was out of Houston. Houston officials warn public about highly dangerous opioid carfentanyl. But for the supplemental story, I wanted to find a video clip, and it takes us over to Franklin, New Hampshire. Carfentanyl found in an apartment right next to the police department. What are the odds, you guys? Now, of course, I'm not besmirching their fine name, but it's just, kind of makes you eye roll a little bit. So meanwhile, in Ohio, Middletown, Ohio, a controversial proposal has been made on how to deal with heroin overdoses, because, of course, heroin overdoses and opioid overdoses are essentially synonymous now. And West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky are being decimated. You can speculate, is this part of a mass cull? It's working pretty well. Middletown is considering whether people with addiction should only be given 2 strikes before they're out of chances at Narcan. Ohio City considers 3 strikes you're out policy on responding to overdoses, so they won't give you that 3rd one. They only give you 2. Come on, you guys, throw in the 3rd one and then let them all die, as is being debated about even in District of Criminals. Our Congress critters. They just debate about how many people they want to die with their so-called health care. Really interesting story out of the Miami New Times. Mosquito pesticides sprayed all over Miami is linked to autism in kids. Every year toward the beginning of the rainy season, dense clouds roll and black salt marsh mosquitoes begin rising from the Everglades and coastal wetlands descending upon Miami. For years, Miami and the Keys have fought back with a powerful tool, permethrin. Permethrin. Permethrin, a pesticide effective at killing the insects before they can make life miserable for South Florida. But a new study suggests that chemicals like permethrin are also dangerous to humans. Peer-reviewed research looks at a small area in New York subjected to regular aerial spraying and found an association between the pesticide use and the development of autism in children who live nearby. This isn't a random poke in the dark, says Philip Stoddard, South Miami's mayor and a professor of biological sciences at Florida International University. Lo and behold, they found an association. The new research published in Frontiers in Pediatrics. So the pesticide they spray, I'm going to wager far worse than anything that might happen to you from the mosquitoes. Oh. They're also going to spray it all over your weed, too. Well, I don't think there's a whole lot of marijuana being grown down in America's wang. So another classic case of the powers that shouldn't be's so-called fix, so-called cure, is way, way, way worse than the so-called disease or the symptoms. Further evidence of that? From the Associated Press. And again, everything we say and play included in the show notes. I don't do this in a fear-free fashion. I want you to continue all this work on your own. I've been doing this as Media Monarchy for nearly 12 years. And so sometimes I might go a little faster because I've been doing this for a long time. The flu vaccine did a poor job protecting older Americans against the illness last winter, even though the vaccine was well matched to the flu bugs going around. U.S. health officials on Wednesday released new vaccine data showing it did a so-so job. This 1 week ago, 21st. The vaccine was about 42% effective in preventing illness severe enough to send a patient to the doctor's office, but it was essentially ineffective protecting some age groups. That includes people 65 and older, the group that's hardest hit by the flu, suffering the most deaths and hospitalizations. The Associated Press headline, Flu Vaccine Ineffective for People 65 and Older Last Winter. And those are the people they tell to get it. Our grandparents. Our grandmas, grandpa. Yeah, fuck the old people, right? They're just another target market. They'll just blow all their money on some televangelist anyway if we don't steal it from them or kill them. And occasionally, very, very occasionally, sometimes heads roll. A former Massachusetts pharmacy executive was sentenced to 9 years in prison Monday after being convicted of racketeering and fraud charges for his role in a deadly U.S. meningitis outbreak in 2012.
With breaking news, A judge has just handed down the sentence for Barry Cadden, the owner of the Framingham-based pharmacy behind a deadly meningitis outbreak. Good evening, everybody. I'm Liam Martin.
And I'm Paula Eben. That outbreak, you might recall, killed dozens of patients. But Cadden was not convicted of murder. Instead, he was convicted of mail fraud and racketeering. We know his sentence now 108 months in prison. WBZ's David Robichaud live at federal court with the very latest on this decision. Roby?
Paula, that just came down. My colleague landed. 108-month sentence was preceded by Judge Stearns giving a lengthy explanation for the sentence he was about to impose. Now, moments before that, Barry Cadden himself was addressing the victims in the courtroom. He was wiping back tears, and he said, quote, "My thoughts will be with you and your suffering for the rest of my life." Now, this sentencing hearing started at 2 o'clock this afternoon, but more than 27 victims had signed up to give impact statements. It was taking a long time. At several points, the judge offered to delay this until tomorrow. But all of these victims are from different parts of the country. They all had to fly to get here. So it was decided it would continue, and all of them want to see justice now. Barry Cadden said nothing as he walked through a gauntlet of photographers outside the courthouse. Inside, one victim told the judge, "You should give him 2 shots of his own steroids." Most victims asked for life in prison for the man who they say ruined their lives. More than 700 people were sickened by fungal meningitis, and 64 people died, all from receiving contaminated drugs that were made at the New England Compounding Center under Cadden's watch. Prosecutors called it a massive, reckless, fraudulent operation, saying drugs were shipped out to hospitals even though they had mold in them. And they say Cadden did nothing to stop it, favoring wealth and greed over safety. So many of these families were asking for a life sentence. As you heard, 108 months. It's about 9 years behind bars now. Judge Stern read all the statements that he was handed by some of the victims. Not all of them were able to get up and testify today, but many of them were very emotional. Some were the victims themselves who could not walk, had to get up there with canes, some in wheelchairs, or some were the victims' families who were testifying because their loved ones died. At one point, the prosecutor said, "Evil is not limited to violent crime. What Barry Cadden did was evil." Now, Cadden's attorney looked at the victims also during his appeal before the sentencing, and he expressed his sympathy. At one point, they were asking for a very short sentence because they pointed out he was not convicted of murder.
Now, I know, we're all probably jaded enough to sort of think, yeah, maybe just a sacrificial lamb. Throwing some meat to the angry mob. Or this guy must have really done something bad to the powers that shouldn't be, that they burnt him and let him go to jail. Now let's see if he actually spends anything approaching 9 years in prison. You're listening to the Morning Monarchy, jam-packed Morning Monarchy. It's the Food World Order edition. Now, we've been in Portland the entirety of the media monarchy career, but I think our time is starting to wind down here, and we are probably going to be gone within the year. We got to move closer to Cassie's family down in New Mexico. So that might put us in New Mexico. It might put us in Colorado. And of course, once you start to look at those places, think about those places, you're looking at the news and you're wondering about, what might be the best place to go. I'd maybe kind of been leaning towards Santa Fe for all the woo-woo action going on down there. Oh, that's right. And there's also, of course, military labs as well. But that's not all. They've also got the plague.
Case is right here in Santa Fe County. Now, due to privacy laws, the Department of Health can't tell us much, but here's what we do know. The 63-year-old man is the first person to be infected by the plague this year. Health officials are investigating his home and neighborhood to make sure other people in the area are safe. Plague is usually transmitted by infected fleas or through bites from infected rodents.
I don't worry about it because we're in the city so that we don't actually get out in the woods where the animals are.
But health officials say you should still be vigilant. So far, there have been 10 confirmed cases of cats and dogs in New Mexico that have contracted plague this year. Health officials say to avoid plague, avoid outdoor rodents, keep your pets inside as much as possible, and make sure those pets are treated for fleas and ticks. Reporting in Santa Fe, David Carl, KOAT Action 7 News.
So far this year, 3 people have been infected with the plague. The 2 most recent cases are women, a 52-year-old, the other a 62-year-old, both from Santa Fe County. The health department said the bacterial disease is given to people who come in contact with infected animals. The best way to prevent it is using flea control. We also have some tips from the State Department of Health scrolling at the bottom of your screen.
I know New Mexico, not big fans of cannabis. Colorado, much bigger fans of cannabis. So I know I'm going to kind of work on that. Yeah, plague, like plague. That's 2017. So they'll kill little kids with the cell towers. They'll kill old people with the faulty vaccines. But let's continue on. Dateline, Santa Fe, New Mexico. In a week, where nuclear safety issues at Los Alamos National Laboratory were already under scrutiny, federal officials announced that the lab had shipped nuclear material across the country using commercial air cargo services in violation of regulations. The National Nuclear Safety Administration announced that Los Alamos National Laboratory had disclosed that proper procedures were not followed in shipping small quantities of special nuclear material. It's not just that regular shitty nuclear material. It's special. To both the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California and the Savannah River National Laboratory in South Carolina. The material was shipped out last week. The head of the NNSA said sending the material by air instead of using ground cargo service was unacceptable. It's like a ballpoint pen in your pocket. In an airplane, there could be a loss of containment. That's a fantastic analogy. Los Alamos lab improperly sent special nuke material by air. Well, you know, they're too busy understanding lightning. As I was looking at this story, it's like, oh, you want to see some Los Alamos stories? How and why Los Alamos scientists are unraveling the mysteries of lightning. Maybe they'll tell us about fucking magnets and how they work. Does seem like a world gone a little bit mad. And we'll continue to cover it here on your Morning Monarchy. All right, let's head on over to Myanmar and Thailand. Myanmar and Thailand started torching nearly $1 billion worth of seized narcotics on Monday, a defiant show of force as law enforcement struggles to stem the rising flow of drugs in the region. The burnings to mark World Anti-Drugs Day. Oh, I must have missed that holiday. Follows another year of record seizures of narcotics from the remote borderlands of Myanmar, Laos, southern China, and northern Thailand. Myanmar remains one of the world's great drug-producing nations, a dark legacy of decades of civil war in its frontier regions where government troops and ethnic rebel forces have vied for control of the lucrative trade. And my question is, what kind of fucking band goes to play the torching of $1 billion in drugs? There they are. They're playing right there. You gotta see the pictures of this $1 billion drug burn. Didn't really know what $1 billion of drugs being burned look like. Now you know. That's probably a pretty good contestant for our cover art of this episode. This jam-packed Food World Order episode as we start to get to a little bit of good news. How about that? New study finds marijuana users are fitter, happier, more successful in life. The study conducted by market researchers BDS Analytics surveyed consumers and abstainers across a wide variety of mental, social, financial factors. These included life satisfaction levels, attitudes toward parenting, and employment data. The survey analyzed extensive data from 2 U.S. states that have voted to legalize the sale of cannabis: California, Colorado. Shattering the stereotype of the lazy pothead, new research suggests cannabis users are actually more satisfied, more successful, and even more likely to volunteer in their communities than their non-smoking counterparts. Quote Jelly be offer a lot on these shows. One I don't often say is, grow more pot. How about more good cannabis news? Cannabis oil benefits pets in pain. Dateline, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Veterinarians are starting to use products for dogs and other pets with a variety of pain and anxiety issues. This is the non-psychoactive part. These are the things that Mr. Chris and I talk about on your Mary Jane Report. Deprogramming note, sidebar, sorry that I don't have the latest Mary Jane Report up in its entirety. I'm going to try and do that today. More proof that cannabis is awesome? Marijuana not linked to rise in auto fatalities.
Tens of thousands of Americans die on the road every year. And if you want to make a list of reasons why that number's so high, you might be able to weed out marijuana. A new study published in the American Journal of Public Health says traffic fatalities are not linked to the legalization of medical marijuana. The study's lead author, Julian Santaella Tenorio, said, quote, "Instead of seeing an increase in fatalities, we saw a reduction, which was totally unexpected." 28 states have legalized medical pot since the mid-90s. Based on 1.2 million fatal traffic accidents between 1985 and 2014, the study found traffic deaths dropped by an average of 11% in those states. But don't grab the bong just yet. Benjamin Hansen, an economics professor at the University of Oregon who specializes in health research, pointed out that just like alcohol, marijuana can certainly impair one's driving capabilities. However, he did say that access to marijuana doesn't harm public safety. He claims the opposite.
And he's right. Let's stay up here in Oregon. And as long as we're talking about roadside fatalities, some folks in Oregon might not want to ask when served an elk burger or venison steak where the meat came from. Under a roadkill bill passed overwhelmingly by the legislature and already signed by Governor Kate Brown, motorists who crash into the animals can now harvest the meat to eat. Thanks, government! It's not as unusual as people might think. About 20 other states also allow people to take meat from animals killed by vehicles. Aficionados say roadkill can be high-quality, grass-fed grub. Eating roadkill is healthier for the consumer than meat laden with antibiotics, hormones, and growth stimulants, as most meat is today. So says PETA. Washington state began allowing the salvaging of deer and elk carcasses a year ago. Pennsylvania might top the country in roadkills, with Oregon wildlife officials telling lawmakers that the eastern state had over 126,000 vehicle wildlife accidents in 2015. I can't swear to it, but I'm pretty sure West Virginia is probably one of those states as well. Now, I did have a story that we were going to go over from NBC, another bit of good news from here in the great Pacific Northwest, how cheese saved an Oregon town. That's the Bandon Cheese Factory in Bandon, Oregon. It's about a 7-minute report from NBC News, but since we have so many other clips, we're going to jump over that and skip it for now. I guess this isn't all good news as we're starting to wrap up this Food World Order episode. I think at this point it might start to turn to some of the darkness that we'll talk about on tomorrow's Morning Monarchy episode that we call Holy Hexes. Yellowstone supervolcano has been hit by a swarm of 400-plus earthquakes in just 1 week.
Yellowstone National Park has been hit by a swarm of earthquakes, but the region's supervolcano is still slumbering. More than 450 earthquakes have been recorded in the area since June 12th. The most recent was a magnitude 3 that hit June 19th, around 9 miles northeast of West Yellowstone, Montana. The highest magnitude quake measured 4.5. It struck Yellowstone National Park June 15th, and it marked the strongest trembler in the region since 2014. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, most of the quakes ranged in magnitude from 0 to 1. The University of Utah, part of the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, says seismic activity near volcanoes can signal an eruption is about to take place. But the USGS says earthquake swarms in Yellowstone are common. The organization currently lists the Yellowstone volcano alert level at normal. A spokesperson for the agency told Newsweek the current seismic activity is, quote, slowly winding down.
All right, y'all, we're at DEFCON 1. Last couple of headlines and stories to talk about here on the Food World Order edition of your Morning Monarchy. Again, glad you're here. We are streaming live at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. We'd love if you'd share that link. And on Thursday shows, they are the dark and disturbing episodes. And I love kind of having one episode end with stories that would kind of bleed into the next day's stories. And we'll get a little tabloid from the Mirror. A strange health craze where spa-goers get hit in the face and body with knives is becoming popular as people seek new ways to feel relaxed. Sharpened cleavers are pressed in rhythmic motions with nothing but a thin piece of material between the patient and the blade. Xiao Mi Fang, owner of Ancient Art of Knife Therapy Education Center in Taipei, Taiwan, has been performing the strange procedure for more than 13 years. But says people are now seeking out the treatment, which starts around at 30 pounds. Ms. Fang said the treatment is originally from China and is 2,500 years old, but here we've created an original and new knife therapy. Oh God, some of these pictures would be pretty good Pretty good cover art as well. That's what I was going to say. The Sandy Man over in the chat. I thought maybe you lived in Taipei. Never heard of it. So that should also be something a little bit telling. Big splashy headlines on the Mirror out of the UK, but the people actually living in Taipei are like, I've never heard of that at all. The massage changes the energy inside the person and makes them more relaxed. The knife is specially made, so it's very safe. We wouldn't use a kitchen knife to do this, of course. A lot of people think it's just for fun, but people don't realize this will change their lives. After they experienced it all, they tell their friends, and they all come to us. So you could try some psilocybin for greater satisfaction and well-being. Or you could have somebody hit you with giant meat cleavers. You know, to each his own. And we end with a very strange Food World Order story that is a very holy hexes story. Exploding whipped cream dispenser kills popular Instagram fitness model.
A fitness model and beauty blogger is dead after a whipped cream canister exploded. Rebecca Berger's family broke the news to her 175,000 Instagram followers that the French social media influencer died while using a siphon that exploded and hit her in the chest. She was 33. The company that makes the siphon, Ardtime, reportedly recalled the product in 2013 because of a malfunction. It says the canisters were taken off the market and it made efforts to warn customers of potential hazards. Police are investigating, but if it is found the device caused Berger's death, it would be the first of its kind ever reported.
Rebecca Berger's death from the June 17th incident was announced on social media by her family, who warned of the potential risks of defective whipped cream dispensers. God damn. What a way to go. And what a way to wrap up a pretty strange episode of your Morning Monarchy. A lot of powerful stories, a lot of interesting stories, a lot of stories you need to share with friends. This is why we do all this. So you have more information, so you make better decisions. That's what it's all about. We're going to go out with more brand new music from the mighty Gothenburg, Sweden band called Little Dragon. We've played their song High for you. We've got another track called Strobe Light coming up in just a few minutes, but of course, let's take a look at this day in history. June 28th, 1894, Labor Day becomes an official U.S. holiday. June 28th, 1902, the U.S. Congress passes the Spooner Act. No, not Lysander. It authorized President Theodore Roosevelt to to require rights from Colombia for the Panama Canal. June 28th, 1926, Mercedes-Benz is formed by Gottlieb Daimler and Carl Benz, merging their two companies. You see, even the murders and executions going apace, even all the way back in 1926. Oh, I see I got my stuff slightly out of order. Slightly out of order. Let's hop back in time then slightly to January 28th, 1914. In an event that is widely acknowledged to have sparked the outbreak of World War I, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, nephew of Emperor Franz Joseph and heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, is shot to death along with his wife by a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo, Bosnia on this day, June 28th, in 1914.
Seven young Bosnian Serbs, who were part of the nationalist Black Hand, planned to assassinate Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary. The first attempt failed when a bomb was thrown at his car. He missed, and the conspirator was arrested. As the car carrying the Archduke went down an alternate route, Gavrilo Princip happened to be there. He shot and killed both Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. This caused a crisis where Austria declared war on Serbia, and in response, Russia declared war on Austria. Other nations, obliged by their alliances, joined in, bringing the outbreak of the First World War.
Pretty important note on this day in history, June 28th, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand in 1914. Continuing to look at this day in history as we do at the end of every episode of Your Morning Monarchy. June 28th, 1969, the Stonewall riots begin in New York City, marking the start of the gay rights movement. June 28th, 1986, speaking of gay rights, Wham! Made their final concert appearance at London's Wembley Stadium. A guy named Elton John also made an appearance in a clown suit to sing a song and then came back later to sing Candle in the Wind with George Michael. He was already doing that in 1986. Who was it about then? Oh, that's right. It was originally about Marilyn Monroe, and then he rejiggered it to be about Princess Diana. That's right. That's good. You know, when you've got one of those bits that you can just sort of custom mold to whatever atrocity is going on at the time. That's just good business sense. June 28th, 1987, for the first time in military history, a civilian population is targeted for chemical attack when Iraqi warplanes bombed the Iranian town of Sardasht. Gosh. Excuse me, Saddam, where did you get those chemical weapons? Oh, I got them from your government. I got them from Don Rumsfeld. He used to be a pharmaceuticals guy, but now he's a military guy again. You remember, Gerald Ford brought him and Cheney in. Oh, it's quite the tapestry. June 28th, yeah, it's the first time that they actually publicly admit it and turn it into a big giant story, which of course is all for war propaganda. June 28th, 1997, what a strange story. Mike Tyson disqualified in the third round for biting off a piece of Evander Holyfield's ear on this day, June 28th, 1997, 20 years ago today. Holyfield, Tyson 2. I remember even sort of, it's like, did you hear? Now, always the funny thing about boxing in America, it's one of the most tightest held rights. That's why it's always these giant pay-per-view things. And even when they're showing you footage that night, oh, there was the big boxing match, it's essentially like courtroom sketches. They've just got the little stills that they have. So even that story there was, you just saw these strange still images. But, of course, what would you expect from an insane, fucking crazy rapist like Mike Tyson? June 28th, 2009, Honduran President Manuel Zelaya is ousted by a local military coup following a failed request to hold a referendum to rewrite the Honduran constitution. This was the start of the 2009 Honduran constitutional crisis. Now, we didn't have any stories yesterday. I must have been saving them up all for June 28th. Posted a decade ago to my own website at MediaMonarchy.com. Immigration reform bill blocked in Senate. President Bush suffered a major defeat as the immigration reform bill defeated in the Senate. Mika Brzezinski refused to report on Paris Hilton and attempted to set her script on fire. Of course, yes, the late, not great Zbigniew Brzezinski's daughter. She makes fake news with a former congressman who had a dead intern show up in his office. They somehow have a hit television show on the Microsoft NBC network. So Mika Brzezinski tries to act like she's a real journalist and doesn't want to talk about Paris Hilton. Doctors back plan to microchip you. That from the French agency Press. Doctors could soon be storing essential medical information under the skin of their patients, the American Medical Association says. Again, these are all a decade ago. And even when they're announcing it to you, they've long had it. They just want to get you prepped for it. See previous chemical attack story. The Pentagon can't account for $19 billion spent on Iraqi forces. That from the Washington Post. The United States invested $19 billion to train and equip nearly 350,000 Iraqi soldiers and police since toppling Saddam Hussein, but the ability of those forces to provide security remains in doubt. Mission accomplished. During a speech at Pat Robertson's Regent University, former New York City Mayor Giuliani indirectly blamed President Clinton for 9/11. So that's Giuliani's new 9/11 conspiracy theory, and the 6th story published to MediaMonarchy.com a decade ago today. I had the opportunity to meet the now late, great Dr. Bob Bowman when he was speaking in Portland on his Patriots tour. So you can even see that photo of me and Dr. Bob Bowman going back a decade here in Portland. All those stories published to my own website a decade ago today. Hey, you know, if you don't have your own website, you might want to look into it. It's a fantastic alternative to things like FriendFace. Celebrating birthdays today, the great playwright and composer Richard Rodgers. You might know him from working with Hart and Hammerstein. It's also Mel Brooks' birthday today. Weapons Inspector rock star Hans Blix, the late great Pat Morita. That's right, Arnold, Mr. Miyagi. It's also the, I think, highly underrated actor and comedian John Biner. It's his birthday. It's Leon Panetta's birthday. Gilda Radner, Kathy Bates, Clint Boone of In Spiral Carpets, you might remember that band. Charlie Clouser from Nine Inch Nails, you might remember that band. Bobby Bear Jr., you might remember him from being Bobby Bear's son. And let's all hold a boombox over our head today for John Cusack's birthday and just try and forget about all the shady, weird meetings with everybody's favorite Snowden. It's also Mary Stuart Masterson's birthday. Gil Bellows, an actor from one of my favorite films, the overlooked Love in a 45. Yes, it's a Natural Born Killers true romance wannabe, but it's damn good. It's got Peter Fonda and a lot of drugs. And a fantastic soundtrack with Reverend Horton Heat and Jesus and Mary Chain and Mazzy Star. It's also Mike White's birthday. Actor, director, producer, screenwriter. You might remember him from Chuck and Buck. You might remember him from School of Rock. And super nerds will know he and his dad were also Amazing Race contestants. Last birthday today, Elon Musk. All those folks celebrating birthdays today. And as we start to wrap up this episode of Your Morning Monarchy, that's when we hit the music. Always ready to hear new music from Little Dragon. Their new album is called Season High, and we're going to hear the second cut from it called Strobe Light. And that does it for your awesome Morning Monarchy. That's a pretty good one. That's a jam-packed episode, my friends. Hope you spread the word about it. If you missed the live broadcast, this episode will be up in podcast form in about an hour. We will rebroadcast it at 2 p.m. Pacific time at the stream, MediaMonarchy.com/listen, and it is all brought to you by you, MediaMonarchy.com/support. That's the Food, Health, and Environment version of Your Morning Monarchy, Food World Order Edition, Wednesday, June 28th, 2017. I am James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com, thanking you again so much for listening and taking part. And reminding you, as always, don't hate the media, become the media. Take care.
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato. Since 2005, Media Monarchy has covered the real news about politics, health, technology, and the occult, all remixed with music and media that matters. Go to MediaMonarchy.com/support and become a monthly subscriber so you can help keep independent, non-commercial, alternative media going and growing. Thanks.